Hello there. Today we're reading Gabriel Sagard's chapter on land animals. Let us begin. Let us turn to land animals and say that the country of the Hurons is no more lacking in them than the air and rivers are in birds and fish. There are three kinds of foxes, all differing in coat and color, but not in cleverness and craftiness, for they have the same mischievous propensities and cunning that ours have over here, according to the popular saying that crossing the sea changes one's country but not one's disposition. The rarest and most valuable of the three species is the one they call Haihuha, the fur of which is as black as jet and for this reason valued highly. These are worth as much as several hundred crowns apiece. After this, the next most valuable kind is the one they call Jinantununk, which has a bar or stripe of black fur along the back and passing under the belly, about 4 fingers broad, the rest a sort of red. The third species is the common one, called Ondasete. These are almost of the same size and with the same coat as ours, except that their fur seems thicker and the hair a little less red. They also have 3 different kinds and species of squirrel, and all 3 are prettier and smaller than ours. The most valuable are the flying squirrels, called Sahuesquanda, ash-colored with a rather large head, and provided with a fold of skin on each side from the front to the hind leg, which they spread out when they want to fly, for they fly with ease among the trees and from place to place for considerable distances. And that is why they are called flying squirrels. The Hurons made us a present of a litter of 3, which were very beautiful and worthy of being presented to some person of high standing if we had been in a fitting locality, but we were too far away. The second species, which they call Ohihwa, and we Swiss, because of the variegated beauty of their coats, are striped and streaked from front to rear with bars or stripes, a white one, then a red, then a gray, a blackish one, all round the body, which gives them a very handsome appearance, but they bite like devils if they are not tamed or if you are not careful. The third species, which they call Arroso, have almost the same color and fur as ours, and there is hardly any difference except that they are smaller. While I was encamped with the savages on an island of the freshwater sea for the fishing, I saw a great many of these mischievous animals fighting day and night for the fish that was drying. I had several of those that the savages killed with arrows, and I caught a Swiss in the trunk of a fallen tree in which he had hidden himself. In many places they have rabbits and hares, which they call Geoton malicia. Sometimes they snare them, but not often, because the cords are neither strong nor good enough, and the animals break and cut them easily when they find themselves trapped. Lynxes, called Dojitsude, are common enough among some tribes, but the common wolf, which they call Anarisqua, is quite rare, and they value the skin highly. Likewise that of a kind of leopard or wildcat, which they call Diron. There is a district in these wide provinces, the inhabitants of which we call the cat tribe. I think the name was given because of these wildcats, small wolves or leopards which are found in their territory. From the skins of these wildcats they make robes or blankets, in which they introduce for embellishment a number of animals' tails, sewing them all round the edge and at the top of the back. These wildcats are scarcely bigger than a large fox, but their coat is quite like that of a full-grown wolf, so that a piece of wild cat skin and a piece of wolf's skin are almost indistinguishable, and I was mistaken once in making a choice. They have another kind of animal named ote, as large as a small rabbit, with fur very black and so soft, smooth, and handsome that it seems to be made of cloth. They set great store by these skins and make them into robes, and around the edges they put all the heads and tails. The devil's brats, which the Hurons call skangarese and the Canadians babugi manitou, are about as large as a fox, the head less pointed, and the skin covered with coarse hair like a wolf's, rough and smoke-colored. They are very mischievous. They also have an ugly look and a very bad smell. They also, it is said, in their excrement void small serpents, long and attenuated, which however do not live long. The moose, or orignal, is common in the province of Canada and very rare in that of the Hurons, inasmuch as these animals usually keep to the secluded parts in the colder and mountainous regions, like the white bear, which are said to inhabit the island of Anticosti near the mouth of the great river St. Lawrence. The Hurons call the moose Sondarayanta, and the caribou Ausquai. The savages gave us a foot of one of the latter. It is hollow, and the horn so light and so formed that one can easily believe what is said of the animal, that it walks over snow without sinking into it. As to the moose, it is the tallest animal that exists after the camel, for it is taller than the horse. In the fort at Quebec they were keeping a young one, with the intention of taking it to France, but they could not get the wounds to heal which the dogs had given it, and it died shortly afterwards. The coat is usually grizzled and sometimes tawny. The hair is about as long as one's fingers. The head is very long and carries a pair of antlers like the stag, but spreading, shaped like those of the fallow deer and 3 feet in length. The hoof is divided like that of a stag, but much more extended. The meat is short and very delicate, the animal grazing in meadows and also browsing on the tender tips of the branches of trees. Next to fish, it is the Canadians' most abundant manna, and they sometimes shared it with us. Bears and martens are common enough throughout the country, but deer, which they call squirrels, are more plentiful in the province of the Adenwanderons than in any other. They are a little smaller than ours here. In some districts there are fallow deer and buffalo. Some of our brothers had seen skins of them, and several other species of animal that we have here, with others unknown to us. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's interesting in this. So in the first one he's talking about foxes. He thinks there's 3 species, but really 2 of them are just melanistic foxes. A couple of the fox names he gives are interesting. The first one, Ha-Hu-Ha. If this were a Mohawk word, I would interpret this as meaning he is a river. The second name he gives, Jinat-Dunuk, sounds kind of like a word from the Vander Bogart dictionary, Senadundo. So this kind of points to Vander Bogart recording an extinct word. Modern day Mohawk, all foxes are just Jitso. Interesting to me, maybe not interesting to the rest of you. On the next page he lists 3 types of squirrels. Flying squirrels, okay, it's obvious what that is. Alozo, which are Canadian red squirrels. Mohawks got exactly the same word there. And then Swiss squirrels, which from his description are probably chipmunks. It's interesting to me that he doesn't mention gray squirrels. Maybe they weren't that common in Quebec, Middle Ontario back in the 1600s. On the next page, his talk about lynxes sort of bleeds into another animal which he describes as a kind of leopard or wildcat or leopard wolf. Now, with your modern knowledge of Canadian animals, what sort of animal do you think he's talking about here? What animal best fits the description of a leopard wolf? Well, I'll tell you what he's talking about. The Huron name Diron, this corresponds to the Mohawk word adiron, which is raccoon. A raccoon to a Frenchman is a lynx leopard wolf. Cool. Another thing that's interesting on this page, they have another kind of animal called ote, as large as a small rabbit with fur very black and so soft, smooth, and handsome it seems to be made of cloth. The translator thinks he's talking about some kind of mole. I disagree. I think he's talking about gray squirrels. It's been well documented that the black morph of gray squirrels used to be a lot more common back in the day than they are now. So why doesn't Sagard identify them as squirrels, put them in with his squirrel paragraph? Well, I think he's only ever seen them as furs, which is weird to think about, but it does sort of align with maybe their range was a lot further south back in the day. On the last page he's talking about deer. He makes distinction between 4 kinds of deer: moose, caribou, deer, and then fallow deer. The translator identifies deer as wapiti, elk, and fallow deer as Virginia deer, white-tailed deer. What's interesting to me here is that he talks about fallow deer in the same breath as buffalo. The impression I get from this is that these are not common animals. This is reinforced. The deer, which they call skanundo, are more plentiful in the province of the Adenwanderons than in any other. So he's talking about elk being more plentiful in southwestern Ontario than anywhere else. Well, living in southwestern Ontario, I can tell you we don't have any elk here. I looked this up, and apparently we used to, and they were extirpated when the area was cleared and settled. The white-tailed deer moved into this empty ecological niche, better able to survive in the margins than bigger deer. Final interesting thing is he lists the word for elk as skanundo. Mohawk has the word oscanundo, which we use for white-tailed deer. So this is kind of the reverse thing of what happened with the foxes. This species here was killed off, but we kept the word and just applied it to a different animal, made up a new word for elk. I hope you found all of this interesting. Thank you for listening.